Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to PhotoJoseph's live training episode session number 2000. Not really 2,000 shows, but this is the 20th series, which is quite a big number, actually. I've been doing this for quite a while. This is the 20th series, and being a 00 at the end, 2000, means that this is an overview session. This is a brand new session starting all over again with a whole new app, and today's app is, of course, Luminar 3 with libraries from Skylum, formerly known as Mac Fun. For those of you who are watching this going, what's Skylum? Used to be Mac Fun, now Skylum. So what are we doing today? So today's session is, as I said, an overview. What an overview session is, like the name implies, a kind of a high-level, top-down view of the entire app. We are not going to be going into nitty-gritty specifics about every single feature in here. That is for future episodes. So the purpose of today's show as an overview is to give you an overview of what the app does, but also of what this type of training entails. This particular session today is free to watch live and will always be free. You can watch this at any point, at any time on YouTube. In fact, not just on my channel, but this is also being simultaneously streamed to the Skylum channel, which means if you are watching live, by all means, please chat into the chat room. Say hello to me, say hello to the folks from Skylum who are watching as well. And if you have any questions throughout the show today, just drop them into the chat. We'll do our best to get to them. Make sure you put PhotoJoseph in front of them so I know it's a question for me, and I'll try to get to that. So back to the session itself. This is an overview again, as I was saying, and the idea here is once you've watched this, if you decide that you want to know more about the app, you want to learn even more, you want to learn every last nitty-gritty detail, that is what the continued live training is for. Every week, Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific is the standard time. I realize today's not a Wednesday, we shifted this one, but normally, Wednesday afternoon, 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, I do a live show, another live training, so the next one will be 2001, then 2002, and so on. And each one of those episodes focuses on a very specific feature or component or workflow or whatever it might be about the app. Depending on the size of the app, these trainings could continue for a few weeks or even a few months. Those individual live trainings are always free while live. They're free to watch live while streaming. However, once the live stream is over, they go behind the paywall at PhotoJoseph.com. So if you go to PhotoJoseph.com and you decide that you want to watch these and all the other live trainings that we've done, then just go to PhotoJoseph.com, click on the membership button, and you'll learn all about how to sign up there to become a paid member to have access to this and all of the other live streaming. So with that said, let's get this started. So this is, first of all, this is Luminar 3 with libraries, which is so brand new, it's not even out yet. This is actually not being released for another couple of weeks, but we have a little bit of an early access here, so I know for many of you, this will be the absolute first time you have seen this version. The big highlight new feature is, as you might have guessed, because it's in the name, Luminar 3 with libraries. You now have a library or a DAM, digital asset management tool, built into Luminar. So let's start with that, and then we're going to move into some of the we'll look at some of the other new features in there, but again, we are going to be looking at kind of a top-level overview. I'll point out a couple of the new things as we go, just so you can see what some of these new ones are over the previous versions of Luminar. Before we even get into the demo, I do want to talk a little bit about what the asset management tool is in here. Now, for those of you who are going, what's an asset management? I don't get it. This product is for you. You are exactly the target audience for this product. If you're coming from Lightroom or Aperture or Capture One or something that has a really, really robust digital asset management tool built into it, then you're going to find that this one doesn't have all the features that you're looking for. This is not an asset manager for you. The app is still for you, because this app works as a plugin to a bunch of other apps out there, including Lightroom Classic and even Aperture if you're still using Aperture, and it works as a standalone app as well. The point is that you don't have to use the asset management tools that are in here. You don't have to use the library tools. However, if you are someone who has just a bunch of folders full of pictures in your computer and you're thinking, you know, one of these days I really gotta get this stuff organized, this is gonna be the tool for you. This is gonna help you get started in getting your images organized and, more importantly, being able to find the image that you want later on down the road. And you go, where's that picture that I took that time when I was at that place? It kind of helps to be able to find them through a tool like this. So with that said, let's have a look. Now, when you first launch the app, the very first time, it's going to ask you to choose where your pictures live. And for most of us, that's going to mean the pictures folder. However, you might have some other management system. You might have them on an external drive, whatever you got, doesn't matter. You just tell Skylum that's where it is. Tell Luminar that's where it is. Point to it, and away you go, and that's all there is to it. So it will then go through and catalog everything that's in there. So I went ahead and pointed it at my pictures folder, which has inside of it a bunch of other miscellaneous folders, plus a folder that I'd set aside for this demo, but it does have kind of everything that's in my pictures folder now showing up inside of Skylum. And if you look over here on the right-hand side, so we're in the new library interface. You can see the library button up here. We're in that new library interface. And you'll see under here, it says folders. That's representing the folders on my hard drive. And since I pointed it at my pictures folder, I'm seeing that first. And then I see all the folders inside of that, including one that I had created earlier called Luminar Originals. And then inside of that, India and a couple of folders from India. Now, the cool thing here is if I click on one of these folders, I'm seeing the pictures that are just in that folder. Click on this one called Jodhpur, and I'm seeing just the ones in there. But if I click on the India folder, I am going to see everything inside of it. Even though the India folder itself doesn't have any pictures, it has two subfolders, I'm seeing everything inside of that. And the same if I go up to Luminar Originals, I would see absolutely everything in that library as well. So here we're getting access to, just very easy to see everything that's in the library. And if I just click on the pictures folder, then we're going to see absolutely everything that's in my pictures folder, hopefully all safe for the show, and you're just going to find just absolutely, everything. So maybe that's what you want, maybe it isn't. You want to dig in, this is how you do it, right in here, again, digging into the folders that are in the Finder. Now, I've mentioned a few times that this is in the Finder, and I'm doing that on purpose. I want to show you that this actually is a representation of the Finder. So let me shrink this window a little bit. I've already got this window open over here. You can see here it's called Luminar Originals right there. And this is, as you can see, inside the Pictures folder, inside my Home folder. And there, India and those two folders represent these two here. So if I go into Luminar and I create a new folder, so let's say I go to India and I right-click on that and I choose New Subfolder. As soon as I create it, you can already see it has appeared over here. It's untitled yet now, but it's appeared there. Let's go ahead and call this. We'll call this, I don't know, New India. Hit that, and boom, just like that, it has created and named that folder in here. Likewise, if I go into the Finder and I create another new folder in the Finder, and I've done that at the same level as that India folder, that is immediately showing up over here as well. Now you'll notice as well that these new folders I've created are dim. We're not seeing, it doesn't look like it's kind of hard to see the name in there because it's dim. That's because there's nothing in it yet. As soon as I move a picture over to it, let's just take one of these and move it in. Now it's got an image in there. You can see the count is up to 1, and I can now see that folder name a little bit better. And if in fact I go over here to the Finder, you'll see that I have actually just moved that in the Finder. So super, super important. Everything that you're doing inside of the folders view inside of Luminar is actually changing in the Finder. If you rename a file, you move a file, you add a folder, move things around the folders, all of that is happening in the Finder. So it is simply a conduit, an interface, if you will, to the macOS Finder. Super, super important in there. It just occurred to me, I have no idea. Skylum folks who are watching this live, is this on Windows too? I'm a Mac guy. I'm pretty sure it is. I'm a Mac guy. I don't know. They'll tell you guys in the chat. Excuse me. OK, so there's that. So now that's your basic Finder level type of organization. But to be a truly powerful asset management tool, you can't rely on just the folders in the Finder. You need to have your own organization system that is separate from the Finder, and that is something called albums. And you've seen albums in all kinds of other apps, and of course we have them in here as well. Really very, very important. This allows us to organize things however I want to and have that separate from the Finder. And the really important part about an album is that an image can live in multiple albums at once, which cannot happen in the Finder. Now, you can use aliases in the Finder, but then things can get really confusing of where things actually live. The whole point of an album is I could create an album called, well, it's just top level India, right? Everything from India. And then I can create another album called Favorites from India. And then I can have another one called, I don't know, to print for my book. Let's say I'm going to do a book. For my book from India. And I'm going to have some same images that will go into both the favorites and the book one. It'll have some images that just go in the book one, some that just go in the favorites. But I can organize them however I want to. And that's the real power of having that virtual organization, if you will. The only way to see that organization is to be within Luminar, within the app, so that you can see where things are. But you have that power to organize however you want to there. Skylum's saying yes, so I'm going to assume that is the yes to the Windows question. Excellent. The kind of things you're supposed to find out before you start. So let's take a look at the album structure in here. It's very, very simple. I'm going to zoom in up here. You'll see up here it says Albums, Show. I open that up. I've already got a couple created. You'll notice that there's no differentiation between folders or groups or anything like that. It's simply albums. So if I create an album in here, and I'll call this My First Album, even though it's not, but we'll pretend it is. And then I'm going to create another one and call that one Another Album. What's happening here? Rename. There we go. Another. Let's try that again. Let's try that one more time. I would like to point out as well, I think this is a good opportunity to point out, another album, a good opportunity to point out that this is unfinished software. So if you see any oddities or if you see any crashes, it's been known to happen. Remember, this isn't yet shipping, so that's the excuse for that. Okay, so I created 2 albums, my first album, another album. I can take that other album and I can drag it inside of the first album, and I have now created a hierarchy. And I can just do this as many albums as I want. I don't know if there's actually a limit to how deep you can go, but you can create multiple albums inside of albums. So you can really organize things exactly the way that you want to. Scrolling up from there, you'll see a series of shortcuts. Now, if I go back down to these albums, let's go to this India, let's say this Jaipur one. Let's say that I've got hundreds or even thousands of albums, and I know I keep coming back to this one. I can go right-click on this and say Add to Shortcuts, and think of it like a favorite. It has now added this under the shortcuts here, so I can get to that very quickly. Under there, I also have my All Photos view. I have automatically sorted by year and month and day, so I know exactly when every photo was taken, or if I'm looking for a photo that was taken in March of 2018, that's how I can find them there. And underneath that, underneath the All Photos, you have your favorites. So if we've marked favorites, and we'll take a look at how to do that in a moment, but if we've marked favorites, I can find those here very quickly. I can also go in here and look at my recently added. So it's kind of a smart album of the last imports that you have. And then you also have a recently edited, which is kind of cool. This allows me to see not only what I've edited, but when I've edited it. So I wonder, where are those pictures that I worked on yesterday? I can click on that, and I'll see the pictures that I was working on yesterday, which, you know, I think that's kind of nice in there. And then you have a trash. So if you throw things away in the trash, there they are. They're going to show up in the trash. All right, so there's all the albums, all the organization that we have on the right-hand side here. So you've got your folder structure, which is looking at the folders in the Finder. You have your albums, which are your own virtual organization. You can organize them however you want. Has zero effect on the Finder, but of course that means the only way to find them is to be inside of Luminar and to look through that structure. And then you have the automatically populated albums, things like recent imports, favorites, recent edits, and so on. So that is how all that works. Skylum is putting on here that the release date will be December 18th. So if anybody's looking for the release date, there she is. Okay, so that is our basics in there of this organization structure. When we're a couple other little things, if you're poking around in here, you do have other navigational tools, like from here up in the top left corner. I can click on this to go through the path, and I can back up through here, or I can do it as we saw in there, or we can just go up one level by clicking up the up level button on there. As I'm looking at pictures, let's double click on one to open it bigger. I now have controls to edit or cull my photos. A big part of bringing your pictures into any asset management app is the idea that you're going to go through and pick your favorites, mark the ones that you like best, or mark your rejects, the ones that are no good, whatever type of organization you might want to do. And that is exactly what this is all about in here. Incidentally, there are some questions coming up in the live chat, which is fantastic. Make sure, again, that you put at PhotoJoseph in front of it if you can. I will come back and do the questions mostly at the end. I know that Skylum is going to be addressing those questions as well as much as possible, but if it has PhotoJoseph in front of it, I will try to address it at the end live for anybody who's not watching the chat here. Okay, so back to the system in here. So I've opened up this picture. When I open this up, you see obviously we're looking at it large. On the left-hand side, we're seeing a row of thumbnails, so that's just the other pictures that are in that album. On the bottom, you see a row of presets, and this kind of gets into the first level of editing within Skylum, and it's within Luminar. And it's an important thing to understand about the idea behind working with this app. If you fire up something like Lightroom or ON1 or Capture One or any other app like that, the approach is editing first. You are meant to go in there and start dragging all the sliders around, which you can, of course, do in here as well, and we will look at that. But the approach with Luminar, I like to think of it as almost a preset first, because the idea here isn't for you to spend a whole bunch of time messing around with your pictures. It's, if you can just make your picture awesome with one click, just do it. Make it awesome with one click and move on with your day. And so right at the beginning, from where we are first organizing our pictures, first looking at them to decide whether we like a picture or not, how much we like it, we immediately have access to its base editing tools, the base presets. And this is a really important differentiation between this app and many others. So I'm going to go set the presets back to the essentials, which is the default position here. And if I decide that I kind of like this picture, I want to see what it might look like if I do something better, I have an AI image enhancer button, just one click, and boom, it makes some changes to it, and it looks pretty awesome. And that's it, right? At that point, that might be all I have to do. I go, cool, I like the picture, move on. Obviously, we can do a lot more. We'll get into that. But at this point, it's just a one click, you've made the picture better, move on to the next one. Now, other things that we have access to in here. You have at the bottom of the photo, you'll have a row of familiar looking icons for anyone who's worked with an asset manager tool before. You can apply a color label to your photo. So it can have any one of these color labels. The number next to that are keyboard shortcuts, so super important, so you have easy access to get to these. You have a favorites button right there, the little heart on there. And then you have a row of rating tools, from reject, saying, no, this picture is totally awful, I don't want to ever see it again, up to a 5-star rating. All of this can be controlled with keyboard shortcuts. So 1 is 1 star, 2 is 2, 3, 4, and 5. X will mark that as a reject. I can hit P to mark it as a pick, or U to unpick it. And then we saw that it had color keyboard shortcuts as well, 6 through 9. So if I hit 6, you see it goes to red, 7, 8, and 9 in there. And you can color code these and rate them and mark them as favorites however you like. The whole idea behind that, of course, is so you can find them later. If you're looking at hundreds or even thousands of photos from a trip, an event, whatever it is you're doing, you want to go through and cull them. You want to mark out your favorites. Oh, I like these, kind of, I like these a lot. And then that way, later on, when you are looking at the album to deliver to a client or to share with your friends and family or whatever it might be, you can more quickly say, just show me the 3-star and up, or show me the 5-star and up. I just want to see the best photos. That's the idea in there. So, excuse me. With that said, we have all the tools to rate and so on in there. You have the ability to delete the photo. There's a little delete icon over here in the corner. Let's go back to this view. A little delete icon on the corner there, so you can delete the picture away. And you see your file name over here on the left. Once you've done your ratings on all of these, if I tap G, it's going to take me back to the grid view. Now that I've kind of done some organization to these a little bit, if you look up here in the top right above the grid view, you have a couple of different views in here. You have your filters. So right now it's showing all photos, but I can say just show me my favorites, rejected, unmarked, and so on. And so if I do this, I'll say show me just my favorites. It shows just those. Show me just the 5-star pictures. Show me just 3-star or above on there. And you can even do things like, and this is kind of good, you can say, show me the unrated. Which are the pictures that I have not rated yet? Or show me the edited photos, so I saw all the photos that I've edited. And from here, you can really get through quickly and find all the different pictures that you are either looking for or still need to work on, or the ones you've already marked as favorites, whatever it might be. It's just filtering down to find those pictures very, very quickly. You also have a sorting capability in here. So if you want to sort by, and it's by default it's capture time, but edit time for your last edited, ratings, picks, and so on. So you have all the different sorting tools, pretty much the kind of stuff that you would expect to find. And that is the essentials of the library. It's pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot to it, but it gives you the basic tools that you need. When it comes to actually importing pictures into Skylum, I keep saying Skylum, into Luminar, when you go to the import menu, it is really just a simple open dialog. So at the open dialog from here, you select your pictures and you import them. You can choose where you're going to import them to. So here's the folders that I've already created in there. Do I want to copy those pictures over or move them? Am I just moving them from one location to another, or am I copying them? If you're coming off of a memory card, you're definitely going to want to copy them. If you've just got them in one place in your folder, some folder in your Finder, and you're just trying to kind of reorganize things, then you may as well go ahead and choose to move them. And then organization on import. Just keep it all into one top-level folder, or do you want it to be a bit more organized? Do you want to honor a folder structure that you may have already built, so it'll do that, or do you want to organize them automatically into year, month, day folders, or just year, month folders? Incidentally, if you're importing from a memory card like I have inserted into here, so here's a Lumix card, it doesn't give us what I'd call a kind of a standard import dialog where you just see the thumbnails of all your pictures. You do have to actually go in and dig in and find the photos. But if you're doing that, so let's see, this is going to be in the DCIM folder. There's a Panasonic folder. I can see all the pictures in there. Even though right now they're in list view, I can, of course, switch this over to icon view. And you could go in here and manually select the ones that you want to import, but odds are you're just going to import everything anyway. But it's worth pointing out that that is your import dialog. There's no big fancy import dialog to bring in, to select the ones that you want, and it's just import. It's just select the entire folder, dump it in, and then deal with it once it's inside of Luminar. That's how that works. So that is the basics of the library mechanism, or library module. Excuse me. Now, let's move on to some basic editing. Now, there is a ton of stuff in editing here, so we're definitely not going to go into everything here. I covered quite a bit of the library module because it's new, but now we're going to get into editing, where there is some new stuff, a lot of stuff that's been around for a long time. Of course, this is version 3 of the software, and so we're going to look at some of the tools in here, and I'll explain kind of a basics of how this whole thing works. So, with that said, let's get out of the import dialog in here, and I'm going to start with, let's see, I have a selection of photos I've already set aside for demo shots. Let's open this one up here. And I'll go to the edit button. Edit up here on the top right. and now I've got my editing tools. Now before I start editing in here, I do want to show you some other interface stuff. We can up here in the kind of top middle-ish, there is a drop down that allows me to show or hide particular components of the interface. So I can say, hide the film strip. That's the row of icons showing me the other pictures that are in this particular album or folder that I'm looking at. I have the side panel, the editing panel. I can hide that from here if I want to. The photo actions, that's all of these, the hearts and ratings and so on, so I can hide that if I want a little bit of extra space in there. And then to the right of that, there's another button to hide and show the presets. And this, once again, really drives home the point of how important these presets are to Luminar. It's so important it's got its own button. The idea here really is that this is probably where you should start. It's a great place to start. You get a lot of really cool presets in here, and it's just one click to see what any of those looks like. So for example, in here again, if I wanted to click on the AI image enhancer, one click, and it just does. It just does something. And you know what? I mean, it's kind of good, right? That's a pretty darn good effect in there. What's really, really neat about these, you look on here, every one of these presets has a slider on it. So this preset has just applied a bunch of things. It's applied a raw develop, a saturation and vibrance, an accent AI filter, and an AI sky enhancer. But I can take all of this and dial the whole thing down a little bit. Sometimes you apply a preset and you're like, oh, that's great, but it's like too much. Or just dial it back a little bit, man. You turned it on at 11, let's just dial it down a little bit. So that's what this does. It is a single slider to just take everything and just dial it down a little bit. So if I go in and go, yeah, it's too much, I can just take that down and the entire overall effect gets dialed down, which is pretty cool. And you can see that slider moving over here as well under the filters amount. It just brings that down nice and easy. Pretty slick. All right, so that's an easy way to go about it, right? So I just click on one of these presets and I go, oh, do I like any of these? Do I like where these are? And if I like one, then that's great. I can just move on from there. I can, of course, continue to adjust if I want to enhance it, or we can just apply one preset and be done with it. Now I'm going to reset the picture. I'm going to hit Command-Shift-R, which resets everything back to the default. You can see what a difference that is. And let's talk about basic editing. So again, not going to get into every single tool in here, but I want you to understand how you approach editing in Luminar. So here's what we do. Over on the right-hand side, we're already in the Edit tool. Let me scroll up to the top. We have a couple of icons up here. These are already turned on, but there is my histogram. I personally like having the histogram on all the time, so I'm just going to leave that there. You can hide the layers. Yes, you have layers in here. Now, this is something we'll touch on very, very briefly today, but the whole point of layers in here is so that you can add multiple layers of enhancements and then brush between them. So you have like a black and white enhancement level that you put on top, and you could brush through that and have a part color, part black and white image if you wanted to. Pretty cool stuff you can do in here. You can actually even bring in secondary photos and do montages in here as well. Neat. Again, we're going to touch on this very, very briefly a little bit later on, but you do have layers in there. If you're not using them, then you can just hide them and free up a little bit of interface space. Underneath that, you have your filters, and this is where all the good stuff is. This is where all the magic happens. And the first thing you'll see under the filters is this menu. Right now it says Quick and Awesome, but this is our workspace menu. And this comes into one of the other really important things to understand about how Luminar works. So we have, as I mentioned, filters. Lots and lots of different filters. You could call them adjustments, you can call them effects, whatever you want to call them. They're called filters in here. All of these different filters get added to your image to add things like a vignette or color adjustment or exposure adjustments or sharpening or any of these other things that you eventually want to do to your picture. Before you can apply any adjustment, you have to, of course, add it to the list, right? So if I want to add a vignette, I have to add it to the vignette, add vignette to the list so that I can get to the sliders. Makes sense, right? Well, what Luminar has done is they've built these series of workspaces where you have a collection of adjustments that are likely to apply to a particular type of image or editing process. And these are things that Skylum has built for us. They have created these collection sets of what they think is going to be most appropriate for a particular type of editing. So for example, well, Quick and Awesome is a great starting point, but Professional is going to give us access to a whole bunch of tools, just the essentials, or aerial photography, or black and white, or even portraits. And you have a collection of adjustments that are most likely going to apply. And I keep emphasizing the most likely aspect of it because it's simply what somebody decided this is probably what you want. But you're not limited to that. You can add any filter that you want in there to a workspace, and then you can create your own workspace as well. So you have your built-in preset workspaces, or you can just add your own or build your own. And you can even choose which workspace you want to be a default position. So like when I first launched it, it was coming up with the professional workspace, but I go, you know, I just want to have the quick and awesome, so I choose quick and awesome, and then I set that as a default, and now whenever I load a picture, it's just the quick and awesome that comes up. So let's start with Quick and Awesome. What is Quick and Awesome? Well, Quick and Awesome, somebody decided that meant 4 different adjustments were going to be in here. The Accent AI filter, and that is AI for artificial intelligence. The AI Sky Enhancer, which is a new feature in Luminar 3. A saturation and vibrance slider, and a clarity slider. So let's just start with the Accent AI, because in Accent AI, the whole idea is we're just going to make it mo better. Let's just make it better. It's a slider to make it better. Nice and easy. So let's go in here, take the Accent AI, and just go and crank it. And crank it, and crank it, and the image is just getting better. I mean, look, I'm going to go back and forth quickly so you can really see the difference in there. Notice how there's a lot of stuff that's happened at once. The shadows in the foreground have all been lifted up. We've added some color into the foreground as well. The sky has gotten darker. So look, we simultaneously, with one slider, have taken the foreground and made it brighter. We've taken the sky and made it darker and more contrasty and perhaps a bit more saturated. It's just one slider, and it has made such a huge difference. Now, on top of that, I'm going to add the AI Sky Enhancer. So this is going to focus just on the sky. Drag that up, and it's enhancing the sky. Now, that's pretty good. I mean, look at that. That's kind of cool right there. Maybe a little bit much, but that's kind of cool in there. Now, the AI Sky Enhancer is a really interesting tool because it is truly looking for the sky. It is, as the name says, it's an AI, artificial intelligence. It is not just looking for blue colors. It is actually identifying the sky. And you're going, yeah, right, sure it is. I'm going to prove it to you. I have a photo over here that I've selected, which is, it's a picture of a blue wall. So there's a nice sky color, right? You got some nice blue sky in there, blue sky colors in there. But obviously there's no sky. Now, if I look over here at the adjustments, there's my AI Sky Enhancer. Oh, look at that. I can't adjust it. It doesn't, the slider is blocked out because the software knows that there is no sky in there. If you just want to enhance the blues, use a different tool. The AI Sky Enhancer is all about the skies. That is so cool. So it really shows us that the AI is actually looking at it going, no sky in this picture, and off it goes. It apparently will even differentiate between reflections. So kind of cool. Pretty good stuff in here. All right. So let's go back to the photo that I was actually working on. We can see we've done some pretty dramatic changes in here already just with the AI filter, the 2 AIs, the Accent AI and the AI Sky. It's currently loading and analyzing. There we go. And then from here I can do more, right? I can boost a little saturation on there if I wanted to. Take the vibrance up a little, which is a bit crazy on there. We can really saturate things and take up the clarity, do all kinds of stuff in here. So let's say I've got this so far, and excuse me, I want to add a little vignetting to it. So I want to add something else that isn't currently in here. So now how do we go about adding a filter that we don't already have? All right, to do that, you click on the big blue Add Filter button. When you click that, it opens up this whole dialog over here called the Filters Catalog. Let me clear this out, make sure we're looking at everything. These are all the filters that we have access to in here, and you can see there's a bunch of them in here. Dozens of filters that we have access to. They're grouped into nice little categories, so our essentials, things like the Accent AI, raw develop, that's pretty essential. Issue fixers, so if you're trying to fix things, creative filters. Now, obviously you can use filters for whatever you want, but they've just kind of grouped them together into these categories to help you find what you're looking for. So you can scroll through here, and as you do, you see a little pop-up comes up to tell you exactly what it is, gives you a little sample photo, and tells you what the filter is for, so that's kind of handy. Up at the top, if you want to filter this down a little bit, kind of refine the list, I can say, you know what, just show me the essentials, or just show me the professional ones. I can also mark favorites, so if I've marked any of these as favorites, I can show just my favorites. I haven't marked any favorites, but that's how I do that. And then up here, there's a search. And the cool thing about the search is it's not just searching through the name of it, because if you don't remember what it's called, how are you supposed to find it? But if you know what it does, and you start typing that in, odds are it's going to find it because it's searching through not just the title of the filter, but the description of what it does. So if you can think like color saturation thing. I want to do saturation. I don't know where saturation is. Maybe it's called saturation. I don't know. Let's find out. I go over here and I start typing in saturation, And okay, sure enough, there is one called saturation, but also there's a saturation adjustment under the creative and under the HSL tool. So that's cool. So I don't have to know the name of the tool. I just have to know what it is I want to do. So in this case, I want to do the vignette. So I add that. I click on it, and it immediately adds the vignetting over here. So now let's add some vignette to this, and I can just drag that down. It's obviously a little bit heavy-handed in there, but I can add a strong vignette, and I can even recenter it. So let's see here. If I wanted to recenter this, I grab the place center and I click wherever I want it to be. So say there, and that vignette's still a bit strong, so let's darken that, lighten that up a little bit. And there I've just added a little bit of a vignette to that, pardon me, to that effect, to that image in there. Okay, so that's pretty good. We're off to a pretty good start. Let's do another image. I'm just going to grab another photo and kind of go through the same process. This one's obviously very, very flat. If you've never, for those of you, I just got back from India, for anybody who's wondering why we're looking at all these India pictures. A lot of pollution there, unfortunately. So all the cities I was in, pretty much, pretty heavy on the pollution. And so sadly, you look at a photo like this and you're thinking, man, this could be amazing. But wow, there's a whole lot of stuff going on in there, unfortunately. But we can, let's see here. Let's try, actually, I haven't even tried this yet. We're going to try this live. I'm going to type in haze. There is a dehaze filter. Okay, let's add the dehaze filter. Let's see what happens if I dehaze this picture. Actually works pretty good. Pretty good. I'm going to turn that off. I want to start with the accent AI. I just want to give it a little accent AI. Okay, it hasn't done a whole lot to it. The sky enhancer, can it find the sky through all the haze? Yeah, that dehaze is definitely a good tool in there. Yeah, looking pretty good. I'm liking that. Okay, so that's good. So now let's do a little saturation. We take the saturation up a little bit, and I'm going to really pull the saturation into the sky. And that's looking great, right? The sky looks awesome. The reflections look awesome, but yeah, the center area here, the building, the mountain, and it's just gotten way too, that's no good. That has just gotten way too kind of super saturated. So I'm not too keen on that. So I think what I want to do is build a mask allowing me to isolate what part of the image this saturation is being applied to. And you have total mask control in here. And again, this is going to be a little quick look at it. There's a lot more to it than what I'm going to show you right now, but you have the ability to build a mask for every single adjustment in here, which you can then, we can actually reuse on other adjustments, but it allows you to really refine where that effect is being applied. So let's just do it. Let's go to the, where were we, saturation and vibrance. If I zoom into this a little bit so you can see it, there's this little tiny brush button. If I click on this triangle next to it, I can choose between a brush, a radial mask, or a gradient mask, or even a luminosity mask, way beyond what we're going to look at today. But you have all these different capabilities. So I'm going to choose a gradient mask. So let's click on that. It says click and drag to draw a gradient. So I'm just going to go up here, drag top down, and I have just built a mask applying that effect just to the sky. And if I want to see just what's being applied, I have some mask tools up here. I can click on this little eye, and I realize now what you're seeing is really weird. That has something to do with my switcher and the way things shown. But the top part of that image should be solid red, showing a red mask of where the image is, where the effect is being applied, and where it isn't. So pretty slick in there. And you can see if I move it around, it's going to apply that wherever I move that to. And what this has done effectively is applied the adjustment to the top half of it, ignoring the bottom half of it. Now I could do this again and do it from the bottom up and kind of do the same thing to the water, but ignore the building in the middle. Or I could do it with a brush. There's a bunch of different ways that I could go about doing it. But the point here is, what I want you to see is that you can apply a mask to any of the adjustments in here, which is very, very neat indeed. Okay. Let's see here. Let's look at one more adjustment, and then we're going to move on. Take a look at a couple other features, and then we're going to wrap it up. So this photo here, kind of sunrise-ish, but again, the sky not so hot in here, so it's just a big gray haze. But I know this was shot at golden hour. It's like, man, come on, man, give me some gold. So I'm going to go into the filters catalog again, and I'm going to type in golden hour, because there is a golden hour effect. And this is so nice. Watch what happens. I'm going to hide this, make that a little bit bigger. As I take that golden hour and I drag this up, it really, really, truly adds warmth, and just like what feels like just the right parts of the image. Right, the sky has gotten a little bit warmer, but not ridiculously so, but the buildings have taken on a really nice warmth. The orange parts of the buildings have gotten much oranger. Look at the blue in the foreground. That's barely gotten warmer, a little bit, but not much, which is what you would expect to happen from golden hour light. Your warm parts get really, really nicely warm. It's like skin tones, brick buildings get really, really beautiful. But something that's blue, green like this, the trees, they take on a little bit of warmth, but not a ridiculous amount. It's just a really, really cool way to just enhance the image, add a little bit of that, it should have been a better morning. There we go. That's all there is to it. Okay, so as you've seen in here, there are a ton of different adjustments. Lots and lots of different adjustments that we can play with. We're not going to be digging into all of these, but that's something we'll save for future classes. So if you do want to see all the different adjustments that are in there, that is something to keep in mind, that we will be going into every single one of these tools, every single one of these filters in the future sessions. So once again, if you're curious about that, let me just kind of bring this up here real quick. I just want to remind you that that is how, the way that you'll get to see all of the future sessions, no matter what your schedule is to become a member at PhotoJoseph.com. So if you go to PhotoJoseph.com and click on membership, you will have access to unlimited streaming of all of the live training. That's all the live training that we've ever done, including this session. Remember, this is the 20th series that we have done. One other thing I want to do before I forget about this is tell you about a contest that Skylum is doing called the Amazing Skies Photo Contest. So you can share your beautiful sky photographs at bit.ly/Skylum Skies. You see the URL right there on your screen. We'll also put that down below, and we'll stick it in the corner here on YouTube. And the grand prize winner will be taking home a $200 B&H photo gift card and a Manfrotto Be-Free GT aluminum travel tripod and ball head kit. So great contest on there. We'll put the URL for this down below. It'll also be up here. It was supposed to be there already. Anyway, click up there, click down below. You have access to that contest. Good luck for that one. $200 and an awesome tripod. Can't argue with that. Okay. So now let's take a look at a couple other things in here, and then we're going to call it a day. And I'll jump into the Q&A and see if there's any questions in here. Again, if you're watching live, you've got questions, especially if you have questions that you want to see something actually happen on here, make sure you put out PhotoJoseph in front of it, and I'll do my best to answer it. Okay, so back over to this. So we looked at the essentials, all the different filters you have in here. There's so many of them. I mentioned layers. So let me just do this very quickly. Under layers in here, you'll see, first of all, the base image that I've got. When I click on the plus button in here, I can choose to add a new image layer, so that will take in another photo if I want to do a composite. Create a new stamped layer, so this is cloning essentially the layer underneath it. And then you have the adjustment layer. So the idea behind the adjustment layer is when I select this, notice that my workspace is just emptied out. I have no workspaces in here. So now I can do any other number of effects, just like I've been doing already. I can do any other number of effects, and those as an entire collection of effects, I can then go into that adjustment layer and mask that out. And so I can do the same type of mask that we saw earlier. So you have not only the ability to take a single adjustment and mask it, you can take an entire collections of adjustments and mask those separately as well. So it's really super powerful way to do your editing. It's a very approachable method of looking at a photo and deciding you're going to add different types of enhancements to it, but you want to scale that enhancement back from a certain area. It's just really easy to do. And so this just, like I said, allows you to group a whole bunch of those enhancements together and turn them all on and off at once, but more importantly, brush or otherwise create a mask between them or not. And then, of course, if you add an image layer, you can put a mask between that as well, a mask on that as well. So you can, as I said, do composites in there. Let's see here. Oh, I know. I was going to do one more photo in here. I wanted to grab this one here to show off some of the presets again, just because the presets are so good in here. So I'm going to go down to my list of presets, and I'm going to choose from the portrait presets on there. And I think some of these are awesome. Like, click on that. This is the artistic portrait. That's the type of look that I would totally do to my images. I love that. Black and white matte portrait in here. You got like a high key portrait one. This is really neat, the noir portrait. So this is another good example of showing you how it applies a bunch of presets and how you can adjust those. So here we see on the right-hand side all the different adjustments that this has applied: a black and white conversion, a soft focus, and the advanced contrast. Oh, incidentally, if this list is getting too long for you, it's getting a little bit confusing. If you go to the layers menu, nope, that's not it. If you go to the filters menu, here we go, you can go into single view mode, and then only one of these adjustments is open at a time. It just kind of cleans up the interface for you a little bit. So soft focus in here is what I want to play with. Notice this very soft look over the whole thing. That is this soft focus filter. I can temporarily disable that. I just hit the little eye there to hide that out. And let's say, you know what, I kind of like this, but it's just, I don't really like it on the face. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that back on. We're going to do another mask. We're going to do a radial mask on here. I'm going to click and drag a circle around his face, adjust the size that however I want. We can even distort it. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Rotate it if needed. But now I've got this mask that has been applied to the entire image except for his face. It's just stuff like that makes it so easy to do, really easy to adjust, and really just kind of fun to play with your images. So once you're done messing around with your image, it's time to get them out to the rest of the world to see. You have your standard share menu up here in the top right corner. Just click on that. Let's zoom into that for us. Oop. Zoom into that. Oh, I guess I have to hit done because I'm in this mask mode. Let's finish that up. All right, here we go. Share menu, and you have send straight to messages, send straight to SmugMug or 500px. You also have an open in, so if you have other apps that you might want to open this into, you can do that. And if you just choose the standard export image, you get a pretty standard dialog in here. You can apply sharpening on export, which is very, very nice. You can resize to whatever size you want in there. You can choose your color space. You can choose the format and the quality. So pretty standard stuff in there, but I do really like the sharpening. And if you're wondering why you would apply sharpening on export, great question. I'm sure we'll talk about this at some future show in a bit more detail. But if you're taking this big, huge picture and you're going to shrink it down to, say, 800 pixels tall to stick on Instagram, you're going to want to add some sharpness to it. You really are. But if you're adding the sharpness before you export it, then it's not the same as adding the sharpness on export because that is optimized for that particular size. So it's pretty slick in here. You go in there and you just say sharpen. You choose an amount. You'll probably start with medium, take a look at it and see how it looks, and then decide from there if it's too much or too little. You can adjust it and re-export the image. But this will allow you to sharpen the image for the precise size that you are outputting to. So that, my friends, making sure, that's everything that I wanted to show you today. It's an overview. There's a ton more to this app, clearly. We will be going into these in detail. Every Wednesday, for the most part, at 1 p.m. Pacific time is when we do the live training. So you will be able to see the schedule for this at PhotoJoseph.com. The next show will always be announced in advance. You could also just subscribe to the YouTube channel, PhotoJoseph YouTube channel. You can find out there. You hit the bell, you get notified when all these things go live or when they get announced. Again, always in advance. Follow on Twitter and PhotoJoseph and Facebook and everywhere else. We have a newsletter. Everything. Just PhotoJoseph.com is the home for it all. So if you do want to follow along on more of this live training on this app specifically or other apps that we've already covered, then please do that. Please check it out at PhotoJoseph.com. Okay, with that said, let me remind you, don't forget about the contest. That's definitely not one to forget, bit.ly/SkylumSkies. You're going to want to check that out. Again, I will put the link to that down below. And with that said, let's take a look at the comments in here at the chat and see if there's anything that I have missed. Let's see here. It looks like a lot of these questions are probably already being answered. We're actually here, I'm going to bring this up. We're actually looking at 2 different chat rooms simultaneously since we're simultaneously streaming to my channel and to Skylum's. Derek had asked, can you export this folder structure to other applications? Interesting question. Derek, I don't even know the answer to that. So Skylum says the folder sidebar is an exact match to the computer's folder structure. Oh, right. So you don't have to export the structure. That's the whole point. You don't have to export it because what you're creating is in the Finder already. And he's also saying that the albums does not have an export structure feature. All right. Let's see here. Ftonic3 says, will the Apple Photos library stay where it is with Luminar 3? Yes, you're not affecting your Apple Photos library. If you're using Luminar as a plugin, then Apple Photos is just doing what Apple Photos does, and you're just going to choose to send the photo or open the photo in Luminar from Apple Photos. If you want to use Luminar 3 for the asset management tools, for its library function, then you can't use it and Apple Photos simultaneously, right? Apple Photos manages everything internally and inside of its own custom, proprietary library. Everything is inside of the package. Luminar can't see inside of the Photos package, right? That's like its own little custom thing. If you were using something like Lightroom Classic and you were managing everything in the Finder, then yes, this could look at the same folder structure. I don't want to say the same library, but it would look at the same folder structure because it is simply looking at what is in the Finder. If you're using Photos right now as your asset management tool, you're probably just going to want to stick with that, but use Luminar 3 as an editor, as an external editor, which is a really, really great workflow. If you are not using anything to manage your assets right now, then Luminar 3 is definitely going to be a good approach to go with. Okay, let's see here. Back to the chats here. On the right-hand side, Joseph is saying, does Luminar have frequency separation? I believe it does. Let me just double check that. I'm pretty sure that there is. Let's go to that. Maybe not. Maybe not. Skylum, if you're still in the chat room there, can you answer that? I thought that it did, but I work with a lot of apps. So I'm typing in frequency in here and I'm not seeing anything come up. So possibly the answer is no to that then. I will let Skylum answer that in the chat room. Let me see if there's anything else over here that I missed. So nobody had put PhotoJoseph in front of me here, in front of a question here, so I am going to assume none of these were for me. A lot of discussion going on though, which is just awesome. Very, very cool, and thank you, Skylum, for managing this and making sure that everybody's paying attention. So I see Ron Prakash had asked about how it integrates with iCloud Photo Library, so I just answered that for somebody else, so hopefully that helps. What I'm actually going to use my Photos library as well as Luminar library, so no, you wouldn't use both. You'd use one or the other. Excellent. Alrighty. Anything else show up over here? No, looks like that was everything. So that was easy. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope you felt like you learned something. It is a very, very cool app. It's been nice to see this thing progress over the years. Now, obviously, at version 3, we're seeing a lot more functionality, a lot more capability than there were in earlier versions. And the library in there is very, very nice. Skylum pointing out in the chat as well that Luminar works as a plugin to Photos. That's what I had mentioned. It's a superb way to enhance your capabilities of what you can do in Photos natively. Yeah, that's it. PhotoJoseph.com/membership if you want to be able to see all of these at any time, or just make sure you're tuning in live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time to see the live show. And with that, my friends, we're going to get out of here. I hope you enjoyed the show today. I hope you learned something. If you were not watching this live and you got questions, you just drop them into the comments, and I will monitor them as much as I can. I'm sure Skylum will be monitoring them as well, and we will hope to answer your questions, or of course you have a whole Skylum support page as well. If you do decide to buy the app based off of what you've seen here today, there's a link down below that's my link. I would appreciate if you use that. That just helps out around here a bit if you use my link. But if not, that's okay too. Just make sure you get your hands on the software. It's pretty awesome. Take care of yourselves, everybody. We'll see you next Wednesday for the first in-depth episode. It'll be episode number 2001 on Luminar 3 with libraries. Bye-bye.